It's absolutely, it's doable with the right approach, I think. So
Yeah.
the key is really breaking it down, I would say, into structured phases, because throwing people in at the deep end and expecting them to just get it never works, ever.
So,
So we take them through a mix of training, hands-on projects, and quick wins to really help build the confidence with every step. So to start off with, kind of in the beginning week, it's all about the foundations and the
yeah.
wins, getting them used to the fundamentals of Claw, understanding the interface, all of the essential tools that they need to know.
Yeah.
And we start to gradually introduce those quick wins to really get them on board. Um, and then I guess it moves on to more like the application and what it would be like in real life scenarios for them, which really helps to grab them and pull them in. So we start applying it to real industry
Yeah.
tasks. So things like the digital fit, reviews,
Yeah.
bidding, and then finally it is all about the team collaboration and implementation, looking at
Yeah.
areas that they can collaborate together, close set and things like that, working together as a bigger team. So by the end of the 11 weeks, they're not just using the software, they're actually embedding it into their 3D and, well, into the way that they work, should I?
Exactly. So it is possible. I think that with anything, with any kind of new learning, there's going to be, I guess, there's going to be a bit of push and pull. And I think it's important that anyone who's learning anything new has a full understanding of not just what they're learning, but the why they're learning it.
Yes.
I
Why
think,
is so important.
yeah, because it takes a lot of investment, it takes a lot of time, and a lot of independent learning. I think, unlike when we were probably both learning, I don't know, Illustrator or Adobe Photoshop, well, a lot of it for me, especially, was kind of in-house learning at university. Yeah, it wasn't so much about me slaving away at home trying to, or by having to buy a new computer to be able to use it. It was about just downloading the software, taking some of the very kind of, it was probably robust learning, but it was simple learning, from university, and then just easily applying it. And I think that this is a little bit different. I think
Yeah.
the tools are a little bit different. The requirements are a little bit different. And I think that the time that is needed to learn, is a little bit different. And I think a lot of people could learn from our experience with working with J.Crew. And I think that today we're going to, give people, an insight into how we work, our approach to 3D, our approach to 3D learning, the challenges that J.Crew face while doing our 11-week program, the challenges that we face doing it as well. And then all of the wins that were gained. I think that it's important for people to have kind of an honest review of, you know, what it was actually like to train a team of people that had no idea how to use 3D. We had no idea they even wanted to use 3D.
Yeah.
And we got them ready to be ready. I think it's a lot in the preparation. And then how we utilize our own experiences within that journey so we could, help them through the baby steps of not just learning, but understanding, where they could get to in terms of their day-to-day practice, their day-to-day design practice or product development practice, from where they were to where they can be with 3D. And I think there lies the excitement. There lies the why, I think, for a lot of people, not just here's the software, learn it because your company's paying for some training, go off and do it. Because that, for me, doesn't work. And that's
Yeah.
the way.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
So to start off with, I think that people should know who we are, Laura. So, I'm Louise and I'm the founder of In-House. And Laura is our 3D expert and trainer. And if you want to elaborate more, Laura, on your experience and
Yeah, thank you. So my role in-house is to support fashion brands and professionals in integrating 3D into their workflow and help them to work more efficiently and sustainably.
yeah,
My background is in fashion design, product development, and technical design. I've had a bit of a well-rounded past in the fashion industry, and I've spent over 20 years doing so. But beyond my industry experience, I'm also a qualified teacher with a postgraduate certificate in education in the lifelong learning sector specifically. So that means that I really understand how people learn and how to adapt training methods to suit different learning styles and needs. So yeah, in-house training, it's just one part of the larger digital transformation strategy, isn't it? Many
that's a huge
brands.
part.
Yeah.
That's a huge part. And this is something that's quite new to in-house because it, but I don't know why, because it really fits in with our approach to how companies should implement 3D. And I think that it gives I don't know, it gives a more ending to our end-to-end solution
Yeah.
than we finishing where we did finish before in terms of, its support in terms of maybe 3D rollout or actually supporting teams, not just design teams, but development teams, marketing teams, to be able to fully utilize 3D and train them. So J.Crew was a big learning curve for us in terms of not just taking our methodologies of training and aligning them with how the company wants to help companies implement 3D, but also just the learnings that we faced in, J.Crew being a very big company and also a multi-layered company.
Yeah. Very much so.
In their structure, but also in how we're going to be training going forward.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of lessons to be learned within that. Just to give everyone a background of our approach in general, it's very what I call holistic. I think that 3D is for everyone from design all the way through to product development, marketing, all the way through fashion companies. It's new, but it's also quite scary. I think that, it's a wave of technology it came all at once,
Yeah. It did.
Do you know what I mean? It was like a whirlwind of technology that came at a time when we actually really, really needed it. But it felt like it went from 0 to 100
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
space of time.
That's been really confusing for people as well because they don't know what they should actually be investing in. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's getting to know those tools and really figuring out what is the best for that company or for that brand.
Exactly. And our approach is very much about taking companies through the steps required to be able to build a really strong foundation to implement 3D. So we take companies through, understanding their processes, building a 3D vision for the future so they know where they're going. They have a roadmap as to where they're going. 3D training is very much a significant part of that now. And then a kind of nurture phase where we support them to have a wider 3D rollout. But this is very much a proof of concept project. And it's very much an introduction to 3D. But the goal within training and the focus in training is always about getting a team from A to B. So making sure that through training and through doing workshops and through, through homework that they can really fully get from zero knowledge to somewhere where they can use 3D and they understand 3D. So yeah, let's elaborate more on the J.Crew experience and how we got them from absolutely nothing to where they were.
Oh gosh. So I would say when J.Crew first approached us for training, they were really looking for immediate efficiencies or quick wins, is how they put it, that would really help reduce their oversampling and streamline their development processes. They knew that 3D had the potential to do that, but like many brands, they just didn't know how to apply it in a way that actually made sense to them. So to give them the best possible start, I developed a training schedule, well, a curriculum tailored to their specific product for swim and lounge categories. And the goal was not to just cover as many Claw 3D tools as possible, but do it in a way that was directly relevant to their products and to their daily workflow. So alongside that, I created a really detailed flow manual and bespoke exercise files for each topic to ensure that they had ongoing reference materials that they could refer back to at any time once the training sessions were complete.
Yeah.
And the 30-hour program, which was spread across 11 weeks, as we've already mentioned, was really intense, but rewarding, I would say. And we balanced within that time the foundational knowledge with hands-on practical application, focusing on tools that we knew would really make an impact, such as the fabric simulation for accurate drape, the modular design for speeding up the style variations, and then finally we moved on to more rendering techniques to create really high quality visuals for their internal approvals.
Yeah.
And I think by the end of the program, or the training, should I say, the team, they didn't really just understand the full scope of Close 3D, but they identified where they could make the most meaningful changes in the process.
That's the most important part, I think. I think that's where the penny drops for everyone. And people then become really engaged because they know, oh my God, this could make my life a hell of a lot easier than what I was doing before. But I think just because before you did the training, you had that opportunity to really assess from the background why we were creating their library. So we had that space within our end-to-end solution where we create 20 3D assets for a client. And we really use that as a pre-training exercise because while we were presenting each product that we were creating, we were taking them through exactly how that product was created. So we had a weekly meeting with them where we would take them through the products that were created. And that was with our designer, Janine. But then it gave you the opportunity to really assess from a background point of view, who were the people who were going to then do the training? Who were the ones that were really excited about 3D? Who were the ones that were maybe looking a bit unsure? And I think that preparation really stood everyone in better stead when we actually then went into training, because going into cold training is hard for anyone. It felt like we were warming them up. They were understanding. They kind of had I guess a very generalized understanding of the Clo interface already. It could kind of see some tips and tricks that we were doing to create some of the assets. So how vital was that for you, having that warm-up period to then kind of go into the team and then, have that training experience with them?
Yeah, I think that initial phase that we had really helped to build the why, because they could see exactly what they could achieve in Claw 3D. And within that time as well, that gave me a little bit of time to just sit back and review. Like you say, I was kind of assessing the team, finding out who was asking the questions, who seemed like they were really, really on board, who it might take a little bit more from persuasion. Not that I don't think that once things like get going in 3D, I don't think you really need to persuade teams, because it is such an amazing tool that they do quite quickly get on board once they realise the potential. So it was, in the beginning, it was really getting to know them, getting to know their pain points, understanding. I could even figure out a little bit from those initial meetings what their learning styles were, and how maybe they were a little bit more visual and they like to see things visually. We had some members of the team that were more like, they liked to do actual practical that was fun. So we had a bit of gamified exercises injected in there to really keep people engaged. And it was all about keeping that engagement level up the whole way through the training.
Yeah. I mean, and also momentum, because, you know, with a loss of momentum, it's very difficult to then pick people up to then, you know, it's almost like you're having to start again. Mm-hmm. So I think that you really kept the momentum up, and they really thoroughly enjoyed the training. I think, you know, this really speaks to this bespoke approach, because, yes, it could have been easier just to create a 3D, you know, beginner's manual for them that we could then use for everyone. But I think there's something about trying to really understand them as people. Mm-hmm. And like you said, their learning styles, to then adapt to be able to kind of keep everybody engaged and keep that momentum up. And I think it would have been a lot harder if we'd kind of given them this cookie cutter, you know, here's our close 3D, you know, beginners training. And I think it works for some people and it works for some, you know, I'm sure it's successful in some areas.
Yeah.
I just think in keeping with how we want to be able to create that journey and baby step people into 3D, it wouldn't have been something that would have worked for us. Mm-hmm. That, and also being adaptable. I think we had to adapt to them, you know, and also understand that they're learning within the context of the business of fashion. You know, I think that the good thing about us, and actually they speak to this in the case study, is that we really understand, we've all worked in busy fashion offices. We all understand the level of commitment needed on a day-to-day basis just to get on with work. So it's really working around that as well. And just, yeah, how did you find like working around their schedules? Because we also we gave them one-to-one training. We gave them homework. There was a high level of expectation and commitment they had to give to their 3D training as well.
Absolutely. I do think in any training program, flexibility is key. But in a fast-paced head office environment, it's absolutely critical. So to me, J.Crew's really demanding schedules and offer them at the actual time to commit to learn 3D. We had to really work alongside them to make it work, make the training work for them and not against them. So from the start, adaptability, sorry, it was built into the program. Yeah. And if their schedules changed, then we rescheduled. And if a session needed to be split into smaller parts to accommodate any production deadlines, then we adjusted. And also we had topics that we felt that we had to readdress that were a little bit more complex than others. So we would do a refresher if that was needed. And if there was any holidays on the team, again, refreshers. We just provided that additional support. So that we're not just covering the material, but ensuring that everybody really felt confident in applying it. So, yeah, I feel that's why having a structured but flexible approach, it really makes such a difference. It really allows the team to absorb that knowledge a little bit more in a way that works for them, rather than feeling pressure because they've already got demanding roles. As we know from being in the industry, that it can feel overwhelming if you've got something that's been placed upon you that you've got to do alongside your day-to-day role.
That's it. And I think what was great about J.Crew was the fact that the team that we were training were not just designers, and they weren't just from one level. So we had C-suite there, we had director level there, we had people that worked in product and PLM there. So I think it was great to have that varied team. So no one kind of felt they were being pitted against each other, or someone's learning faster. And all of the things in terms of all the anonymous polls and all of the feedback, they were then given that freedom to be able to express how they actually really felt about learning. I think having that space, because like you said, what we didn't want them to feel is that we were just thrusting this upon them, you know. And I think that when it's forced, it feels forced. It feels a burden. It feels, you know, we don't want to do it. Them having that space for them to be able to have those conversations, but be able to express themselves freely and anonymously was really good. We were doing it within the context of a training session. Everyone got a chance to say how they actually felt, and it was on their phones, so they could do all that on their phones, and then it was on screen. And so we were using technology in a way, in many different ways, to be able to make this quite a seamless, enjoyable, but also in a way that they could express how they felt.
Yeah.
That's really important. And then you could take that information. Obviously, it was anonymous, so you didn't know who was saying what. It gives you food for thought. It kind of gives you a bit of kind of direction into, you know, how you wanted to, you know, to be able to do the next lessons, or and the one-to-ones, to be honest, I think fantastic as well, because again, they've got that one-to-one time with you. They had that one-to-one time with you where they could just say to you, okay, I'm not getting that, but maybe I'm getting that.
Yeah.
I think that was invaluable. But how important do you think it was for them, the team, to see, you know, senior leadership also learning 3D at the same time?
I think that was, in this scenario, it was a really huge factor. In any scenario, realistically, having leadership buy-in is what is going to make the success of the project. I think it was obvious from the beginning that the commitment was so clear. They provided the time, they gave us the resources, and they really encouraged the team right from the beginning, so that everybody together was fully engaging. And I think not just having the leadership in terms of the operations, we had the actual management of the technical design team in there as well, who participated in the training, and they gave like inspiration to the team, because they weren't just there and listening, they were actually doing the work as well. They were discussing in the team's chat, they were sharing work examples in the team's chat, and they were actually giving and sharing tips as well, which was amazing to see. So I think that having that leadership buy-in and having them there, understanding and involved in that process, has been absolutely key to the success of this project. Yeah, definitely.
I agree, because I think a lot of the senior leadership team that went, and even the senior members of the team, technical and design, are around kind of our kind of experience level. It's not easy. I don't want to say age, but it's not easy learning something new. Like, it's not easy kind of going in, having worked in one way for like 20 years already, or 15 years. And then, you know, your kind of CAD levels at Photoshop, Illustrator at best, and then learning this massively robust tool. It's a massive learning curve. So for maybe the ones that are a bit more tech savvy, to senior leadership who are like, we haven't used Photoshop in our day-to-day lives for about 10 years. and actually take that time to actually learn at the same time, I think that is invaluable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think that it's like I said, it's not easy. I myself, learning something new now, I'm just literally it takes me ages to wrap my head around it. So, I think the kind of younger generation who have kind of grown up a bit more with technology and gaming, maybe they have a little bit of a head start. But I think that what you found within the context of the training was really interesting, that maybe actually the ones that are, completely new to tech were probably the ones that were actually doing really, really well.
Yeah. Yeah, they were. They were. And they seem to be the most like they have the most questions, but that is brilliant because it shows interest and willing. But it also helped the rest of the team understand then how it could actually work in their day to day, because they understand the bigger picture of how everything works. So they're asking questions relating to the role, whereas those that are probably more familiar with technology are just getting stuck into the technology and just learning everything. So that really helps to shape internally their learning process as well. So that was really nice to see.
Okay. And then there were some wins that were just like awesome, like, I don't know, where the penny just dropped for them. So it's just like the times where they were like, oh my God, this is going to be fantastic for us. Or, the times that they were just really excited about how they could implement 3D into.
Yeah, I would say actually within this training that there were a lot of breakthrough moments, and it's hard to pick just a few. But I have had a little think about some top ones that really stick out in my mind where they were really, really like, oh my gosh, yeah, I can see how that works and I can see how we can incorporate it and it's going to save us time, money, whatever. There's so many bonuses to these points that they raised. So the first one was the grading review, where they could see all of the sizes together in the software in one place, and that was an absolutely massive aha moment for the team. Suddenly, they had the ability to check the fit, the proportions, the trim placement without actually needing to make physical samples. So they wouldn't have to make a full graded size set to actually realise something is not working in the grading, or that trim placement's not right, that graphic placement's not right. They can actually see it in real time and make those adjustments before they have to make that sample run. So that would be a really big money and time saver. And linked to that one was the ability to actually grade graphics in the software. So they could grade the placement of a graphic and adjust it according to the sizes. That would move the positioning up or down or make it bigger or smaller. And that would then work across the size range as well. So they could see how that new placement would work in real time.
Yeah.
Fewer mistakes, better accuracy, and absolutely no more guesswork. So that was a really, really big one for them. Pattern truing, I think we did like a whole session on pattern truing, and this one was one of the areas that they were quite passionate about understanding. So within the pattern truing area, they could check that all the patterns matched, they all measured correctly, and that they were actually production ready. So that was a really key thing for them being the technical design team. They wanted to make sure that all of those things could be checked before they actually made a sample, and again, wasted money on unnecessary sampling if something wasn't working right. So they didn't have to wait for the feedback from the factory anymore. They could spot and fix those issues instantly. There was the modular library as well, which was a really big one for the team. And we kind of knew that the modular library would be a big one from the start. And that's an area where you can actually build a block and you can make adaptations to that block. So if it's a core style that you're bringing in year on year, it's always the same, but maybe it's got a little bit of an adaptation, maybe the neckline changes. the sleeve length changes, or even the colours, then they could have a library with that core style and then different iterations of that style.
Yeah.
So they can just build on that year on year, tweak it and share those versions then within the team. So that realistically had the potential to completely change their workflow.
It's a game changer. It's a game changer. Instead of like, having a kind of flat image in Illustrator, they can on a mannequin, they can kind of see it on a sized mannequin, they can see it accurate, they can see how it's going to drape, they can see it from all angles. So did you actually could you feel the excitement from them? Was it like, oh my God?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. When it was a session that really clicked, I sessions feeling like completely blissful, let's say. Over the moon, it's finally clicking, they can see the value in this. And I think that it helps to give you a little bit of a big up as well, because you think, well, yeah, I knew this would be good for you, and I'm just so pleased that it worked and you can see the value in it. Because I'm just so passionate about the software myself. When I can actually get other people on board, I'm just like, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you don't feel like you have to try so hard to convince as well.
Yeah.
They're literally just excited, Did you feel like there was a mindset shift in the journey of the training?
Yeah, I think that how we started off showing those examples of what they could achieve in the beginning, that really, it helped to ramp it up from the very start. So right from the beginning, the team were interested, they were intrigued, but I think that they were apprehensive in the beginning. I think that's what any could have possibly been, is that they were just apprehensive and they didn't know how it was going to work and how it was going to work for them. So I think all along it was about kind of answering that question. Like, let's think about ways that you can incorporate this into the work. And I think calling on industry experience really helped with that, to say, look, I know that this could help because we know that this happens in industry. So you could use this tool like this to help. And I think that really helped all the way through in them realizing the potential, realizing why they were learning the software and seeing it fit in the day-to-day life.
And that's the thing. I think that, like I said, we can always lean on our own experiences in terms of helping to shift mindsets. Because I remember working in design and at the beginning of my design career and feeling abject fear, when my tech pack went off to a factory in China, and I've tried to give as much information as possible. And then 2 weeks later, you get a jacket back with 10 sleeves.
Yeah.
A style line that is not that's a style. It's like
just movement.
Yeah, just movement. Or what is that, And that fear of, oh my God, or even it not even being the factory's fault. It's the information I have given. The information that I have provided has not been enough to be able to create the garment. And even the vision in my mind for a particular design just doesn't look good, And I think that back in my day, we didn't have that heightened, visibility. It was so much a guessing game, because a flat sketch to a physical sample can look completely different.
Yeah.
Then the interpretation of that can be completely different. And then you can give as much information as you think is needed, and it will never be enough to probably get to that point. So I think it's just using that anchor point of experience and saying, I know what it's like, working in design. I know what it's like to give a tech pack on and not know what you're going to get back. And this actually makes it a lot easier. Can you see how you can fully visualize your design? You can put it into a showroom if you really want to. Do you know what I mean? You can see it from a 360 angle. Those fears because believe you me, those fears still there because the demand is still there. The design sales cycle is just getting shorter and shorter.
Mm-hmm.
So, we don't have 4 weeks of iterations to do between design, product development, and then factory back and forth to get, as get a sample correct. So the more kind of demand that is put on designers and product development, the more we need this kind of software.
Yeah.
Right? So
Absolutely.
so I think that the mindset shift was getting them ready to be ready at the beginning, also using our experience to kind of say to them, look, we've been there, we know exactly what you're going through. And then also kind of saying to them, we also understand your fears, and then building that trust.
Yeah.
That trust didn't just come from training, it came all the way through from the kickoff meeting.
Yeah.
And getting to know their team and them getting to know us and our backgrounds, getting to know them and their background, and also understanding their design calendar and also their critical path, and also understanding the demands of their business. Really helped in that kind of building that trust, changing of the mindset.
Yeah.
Because like I said, we've all been there, so we can and learning something new. You've been there, there to a degree, but learning something, we're all learning something new all the time. And I think that this being what it is, learning something new while working in an environment that demands so much, I think is a special kind of experience and recognition that I think really helped with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it feels like in a fast-paced environment like that, where everything was needed yesterday.
Yeah.
And we joke about that in industry all the time. When somebody says, when do you need it? It's always yesterday.
Yeah.
Like in that kind of fast-paced environment, learning, it really feels like a luxury. But I think because of how it was positioned and having that leadership buy-in, it became like it's necessary, everybody has to learn it, and everybody's passionate about learning it because of the efficiency that it will bring to the business. So it became more like a game changer than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about it being a game changer in terms of industry. It's a game changer in terms of how the individual works. It's a game changer in terms of like how you show up as a designer or product development lead or expert, or do you know what I mean? So you're not sat in, oh my God, there's this going on, I have to talk to the factory, I have to do this. And also in terms of communication, because we're communicating between design, product development, production, manufacturing. Sometimes there's a language barrier. Sometimes there's communication in terms of communication barriers. There's, you've got factories in India or Bangladesh, or, your head office is in America or the UK. So there isn't that kind of time. There's always a time difference. There's always a lag. Whereas I think with this, everything can be done so quickly. There isn't I need to fit this, I need to send it off. It's going to be 2 weeks to get there.
Yeah.
Or a week to get there. And it's going to take, all that time is, I think, it is gone. And I think that from an individual perspective, more importantly, I think that's where your why, that's where your why is embedded. Go home at 6 o'clock. I can start at 9 and go home at 6.
Yeah, we're all striving for that work-life balance, aren't we? That
oh God, that
I never seem to find. But yeah, I think that there's definitely potential to save a lot of time with 3D software. Like you say, just you don't really have to send off if you've got a reference sample. You wouldn't need to send that off anymore because you could visualize it in 3D and send that to the factory as a reference sample. They can view it in 3D and then they can replicate it or adapt it or whatever their responsibility is. Then that saves all of that time there. And then all of your sampling iterations, all of that time there's just so much
Yeah.
time cut straight out with time.
Honestly, why did this happen like 20 years ago?
Yeah, I wish that it would have been around 20 years ago when I first started. Got involved then, and I would have been even more amazing by now.
So in terms of like, let's take this kind of right out to macro now.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of like 3D training trends,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where do you think it's going? Because personally, for in-house, I think that our approach is approach that really works for us. I would say it's the best approach. It depends on how a client wants to work, but I think clients that come to us want to work in a particular way.
Yeah.
So I think there's an alignment there. But in terms of like the wider scope of training in general, where do you think that where do you think it's going? Like, what are the training trends at the minute?
I would say in terms of just generically 3D training and where it's going, I do think that it is evolving quite rapidly. And it's not just about learning the software anymore. It is all about that full digital transformation, especially with brands to really make it work. So they're moving beyond that Claw 3D or whatever 3D software for visualization, because they need to embed it into their entire workflow to truly make it work. There's no use in making just a pretty picture and it having no purpose other than to sit on the website. They really need to get that tool embedded through their entire teams so they can actually see the full benefit. So we are seeing more of a shift towards specialized training tailored to different roles, because a technical designer's needs in Claw are totally different from a fashion designer's needs in a 3D software, or a product developer's. They are so different. There are a lot of things that will cross over, but I do feel that to be able to effectively embed training and embed the software into a business, then they need to understand the quick wins for their department and what is going to work for them. What are the tools that make sense? There is a growing focus on upskilling in-house teams so that they can keep innovating, rather than relying on the long-term support of training providers. So I guess that would be really having those flag bearers within the team that learn and then they roll it out to support the team on a long-term basis. I guess AI as well is starting to play a really big role. Things like there are AI embedded into 3D tools. There's things like auto fitting, there's fabric creators, but at the moment those tools are not quite there. So I think people are looking elsewhere for other AI that they can utilize in the workflow, and that is kind of changing how teams work. But I think long term, there's definitely going to be more of an integration of those two, the 3D and the AI, working more together rather than as they are at the moment. They're just standalone tools, aren't they? And you're having to go into one and then into another. And eventually, I do think they will need to merge together to get the most value.
I think it's just a matter of evolvement. I think it's really happening. I think it's just a matter of softwares being able to speak to each other.
Yeah.
Bridging that gap. I think definitely. I think with learning, it's continuous. You don't stop as humans stop learning. And I think with 3D, it's the same. I don't think that you're ever going to stop the learning practice, especially as technology is evolving. So yes, I think that in terms of foundational training, there may be a beginning, middle, and end, but I think in continuous learning, there's not, because as technology evolves, the demand within the industry will also evolve, because things will be able to be done quicker. So yes, the calendar might be from concept to, to production 4 weeks, but with AI, we could probably do concept to production to having everything, a lookbook and everything done in 2 weeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that the demand will only get more, particularly in fast fashion, particularly in, as commercial needs get bigger, commercial needs get stronger. I think that the need to be able to get product into stores faster is just going to become more precious. But that's the nature of the business.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of, I guess, culture and society, because we want things quicker, in life. We want things at an instant. I can order food in 2 seconds. I can, order clothes in 2 seconds. So I think that as society evolves, the need to have things quicker will evolve. So there'll always be a need for training. It'll be probably be more focused training. Like, how can we get some in 4 weeks? How can we get, and how does training fit into that? And how do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not just like you can't just do one training session and you're done anymore.
Yeah.
It's continuously evolving as tech, and so that changes. We need to know how to use it. Every time it changes, we need to be, as you say, upskilling. I think continuous learning as well is really, really, it is one of the trends. And I think that everybody should be passionate about learning. It is one of the things that really spark us at the end of the day. I don't think there's anybody that can say that they don't enjoy to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Learn something, not everything, obviously, but yeah, if it works for your profession, then it should be something that you're passionate about learning.
That's it. And as I said, it doesn't have to be an 11-week program. It can be a very focused learn, because I think it needs to be in alignment with your business needs. Business needs may change, and then we adapt and then we focus on something else. But I think that you can just focus on one thing with 3D. You can say, right, I want to get, my business need at the moment is to go from A to B. Then we get from A to B. It doesn't have to be, we sit there, unless you want that.
Yeah.
You do complete foundational learning. But I think foundational learning is key, because it really sets that ground. It really sets you up for success, So from that standpoint, I think then you can focus on, just key things within 3D, right? Learning, continuous learning of everything, because that's just overwhelming for anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think having like mini workshops and things like that are really focused on specific things, say that, okay, we've just decided we want to do animation.
Yeah.
And then you could just tailor just a short program, a short workshop just based on that. As long as they have got that foundational knowledge of where the tools are in the software and how they do things, then it would be completely feasible.
Exactly. And I think it's also understanding that this may move out of the closed 3D realm. So it's within that kind of, I guess, our end-to-end solution, it's getting ready in terms of where they want to be in the future. So if it's, using assets for marketing or social media, it could be then we're migrating from Flow into Blender, Adobe Substance Paint, Unreal Engine. It's just, you know what I mean? It's getting people to be ready, and then also helping them understand in terms of investment, in terms of people, in terms of talent, how they can get there.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to have that vision in 3D, and that sets you up for your continuous learning. Okay? Because if you know that's where you're going, then you will know, okay, after this, then I need to do that.
Yeah.
Do that. And then I've got my pretty picture. I've got my is then walking up and down a catwalk, or I don't know, whatever it is. So this has been a really interesting chat, Laura. I feel like this is going to give a lot of people some food for thought about and some insight. I think the insight is really important. and helping people understand who are maybe wanting to know more about 3D training or not sure about what the best thing is for their teams, or not sure about how long it's going to take them to learn. And we can confidently say, we can get you from A to B in 11 weeks.